let's start with a little introduction. My name is Juan Pablo, but I like to be called Juampy. That's also my nickname pretty much everywhere. Sometimes I add an NR, that's from my surname. And I am a backend developer at Lollapalooza. Lollapalooza is a development, design, and strategy company. It's distributed, so everybody works from home or their co-working space, so there's no office. And most of the people are in the United States, but there are also people in Canada, in Denmark, in the UK, in Spain, and in Ecuador. And we're looking for projects, so if you are a company or if you want to work with us, then let me know. So this talk is about how we are rewriting lollapalooza.com. I'm speaking in present simple, in present continuous, because the site is not live yet. We wanted this to be ready for DrupalCon Los Angeles, but we didn't make it. So we plan to launch this next week. Still, I can share everything that we have made here. And the reason why we decouple the front end from the back end is that we want to show our work in our website, and we want to give the front-end team as much freedom as possible to play around with new technologies and structure the information however they like, without the constraints that a CMS, in this case Drupal, gives you. So front-end team, they don't need to know Drupal. They need to know front-end stuff and just, work with the design team with total freedom. So here are the main aspects of the project. So Drupal is just a backend. That's it. It doesn't even offer an API because we get that through CouchDB. And every time a cron runs, we export the data that we want to show in the front end to CouchDB. And the good thing about CouchDB, by the way, this is the CouchDB's the user interface, web interface, is that CouchDB by default, it's a REST API. Like, if you want to create a database in CouchDB, you submit a put request, either through curl or through the browser or through a script. If you want to make a query, then it's a GET request. So everything works through REST. It's same as making a query to get, for example, an article. So the good thing about using CouchDB's REST API instead of Drupal's is that, well, first thing, we are not bootstrapping Drupal, so the request is much faster. And second, we are querying this straight from the front end. So the front end is querying directly to the database, which is at the same time faster. And there's also another aspect that, so for the moment, there is no session in the front end. It's just an animal session. And so the front end's logic is pretty simple. We're just showing information, and the major challenges were in things like routing or redirecting, things like that. And then also, obviously, we had to write a migration path because we are not using the existing Drupal site that we have in lollapalooza.com. We wrote a new backend, and we make some adjustments in how we are structuring the data. And so there's a migration script using migrate module. So here I'm gonna show, this is a little video I recorded. This is how data goes from the backend to the front end. Here's an article in the front end, and I'm gonna make a change in the body. So I got another tab here where I have the backend where I'm logged in. It's a different domain. It's a different site. It's a very simple Drupal site with just a bunch of modules. It's really fast because there's no panels, no display suite in it. So every page loads really fast. And I'm making a change in the body, and we're gonna see how this change is gonna be visible afterwards in the front end. So I'm making a change in the body. This is like what it says, hey, I'm changing this, so to show how it works. Then I scroll down, save the node, and when I hit save, this gets queued in a Drupal queue, and every time that cron runs, it processes the pending queues for a while. You define per queue how many seconds you want cron to process a queue. So here what I'm doing with Rush is I'm listing the available queues, and we can see that there's a pending item. And what I'm doing here is I'm going to run that queue. It's the one that exports data to CouchDB. So once I've run the queue, I list again the pending queues, and it's 0. So that node, it's already in CouchDB. And this is what we're going to see now. So I'm going to open in my local environment CouchDB's web interface, and I'm going to find that node. And the way I'm going to find this node is through the path. The path is one of the IDs we can use to identify a piece of content in CouchDB. And the good thing about CouchDB is that queries are written in JavaScript. You send them through a REST request, but the query itself, it's a bunch of JavaScript. Let's suppose that, so this query is working in the following way. It's like we loop through the whole database and we filter out whichever documents we want. So each element would be a doc object, and what I'm doing here is I'm saying, filter me the one that contains this path, and here's what we see. So here we have the key, and this is the whole node. It's formatted the way we want it to. Like we have removed some fields from Drupal. We have renamed them. So instead of every field being named field, for example, field images, we will have just images because we don't need the field label in the data structure. And we're going to see in a bit how that information gets parsed in code. And we'll start that by reviewing how the backend works. So far, any questions? Okay, right. So let's keep on. Right, so this is the article edit form in Drupal. We've seen this in the previous video. And here is a section on the right side that defines how this article is going to be showed in the front end. Going through these fields now, the parent node is what is used to build the path. So the parent being articles. Articles is a list of articles, and by setting this article to have this as a parent, we have a URL that is like articles / the ID of the node. In this case, the ID is the slug. This is we're using PauthAuto to create these slugs. So the URL of this article would be articles / importing huge databases, and then something else that doesn't fit in the page. Then we have a couple useful links to click here, and so you can see the article in the front end. And finally, there is a template field, and this maps to a template in React in the front end side. So by default, we have set a default template for each of the content types, and for the case of articles, the default template is article.jsx. JSX is React's syntax, but this way lets us, for example, if we write an article and we want to use a totally different template with a totally different set of CSS rules, then we can create the template in the front end, come here, create a template node, and define which template name in the front end we're going to use. So that way we can use a different template, which is a different JSX file, which will render this article with a different design or structure. Once we hit save, we saw this in the video before, we save this to the queue, to the Drupal queue. Anybody here has never heard of Drupal queues, queue API? Okay, cool. So this queue is going to get run, it's going to get processed on cron run. We run cron every minute. We're using Alicia cron, which is very lightweight, so we can run that every minute. And these queues are processed. Whenever we need to process a big bunch of nodes, we're using, I think it's called the concurrent queues project, which lets you like spin up several processes to process a bunch of queues faster. And this is how this is the queue processor for exporting a node. So we have what we're doing here is we're loading the connection with CouchDB. I forgot which library we're using to connect with CouchDB. It's just a PHP library that we're using, and this is the connection that we have with it. And in this case, we are going to update a node. We give a chance to other modules to define what sort of a structure we're going to export to CouchDB. So in this case, we are invoking a custom hook for the node type that we're going to export. In the previous example we saw, we were exporting an article. So there is a hook, there is a module, it's actually the article module, that implements Lullabot edit exporter node article. And this hook is gonna send the node, the node, and we don't have it here, an object that is called output that we're gonna populate with all the data we want to export. And then finally, this line is the one that sends the result, the output, to CouchDB. And well, if there is some error checking there. This is the hook implementation that formats the object that we want to export to CouchDB. So this one will get the node, in this case the article, and output. output is going to be what we're going to export to CouchDB. So here we can see that we're using metadata wrappers, and we are going field by field and defining which field we want to export. Sometimes we change the label because we don't need Drupal's automatically created labels, and there are also cases where, for example, we have multi-valued fields, like for example this is related links, and we are just looping through them and building an array structure. The CouchDB library will take care of converting this PHP object into a JSON object, which is what CouchDB is expecting when we make the request, but we don't need to take care of that. We just make put, and it will take care of making the transformation. So the front-end database is CouchDB, and this is an example article. I think this is the same article. Yeah, actually this is the one that we were seeing before that I was editing in the previous screenshot, and I'm filtering it, and this is the result. Like it has a big body field, so that's why we just see text, but the rest of the fields are there as well. And this is what's queried by the front end. The data always go from the back end to the front end. There is nothing in the front end that can alter CouchDB nor the Drupal database. So it only goes in one direction. At the same time, as I said, CouchDB has an API. It's a REST API, and it has views. A view would be like, in MySQL you have stored procedures, which is like a stored query. A view is the same. Like you go here to CouchDB, and this is a view. So you write a query and you save it, and then you can reuse it. So here we are filtering articles using this view that is called by slug. So we give the slug, which is the path, and which we got here, and we get the article. So this is how the front end queries CouchDB to fetch the data. So let's start with the front end. This is a sample article, and if I'm not mistaken, this is a short video. Let me see if it starts. No, the video is coming later. Right. So we're gonna show how this article works in the background. There are a couple of templates I want to show here. This is the React template for an article. It's the full article, which pretty much all of the HTML that we're going to render. And React, it's very simple in a way that everything is a component. And a component can be an article, the header. You can structure this however you like. React also offers you a few components, and every component has everything it needs. Like, let's say the mantra of React is that it's declarative. It's very clear. If you are experienced with other JavaScript, this is not a framework, it's a library, but to give you some resemblances with other technologies, if you work, for example, with AngularJS or with Backbone, those are MVC's frameworks, where you have the model, you have the view, you have the layer, so everything is well organized. And the problem we've seen with these libraries is that once the project gets like very, very, very big, you get a lot of controllers, templates, and views, and it starts to get tricky where to figure out how something gets built up. And the good thing we liked about React is that it's very clear. You get everything in one file. In this file, we got first the dependencies, then the class that takes care of rendering the component, and the bit of XML, because it's HTML with a few extra things, that renders it. Everything in one file. So it's very easy to see, for example, how an article works and what's in it. So let's go through it a little bit. First thing, as I said, we have the dependencies. This is a simplified version, by the way. It's not the full article because I didn't want it to be too long. So we are requiring here React libraries. These required statements are processed first server side. So this is JavaScript that it's going to be compiled into JavaScript that the browser can understand, and it's gonna go through all of the JSX files. It's gonna compile them by converting them into JavaScript. It's gonna merge them together, and it's gonna obfuscate them. And what we'll use in the front end is something called /dist/build.js, and we're gonna add that, and that's gonna be our application. But in here, we got the mix of JavaScript and XML. So we are requiring dependencies here, and then this is the article class, which goes down to here. And finally, we are exporting this as a module, so we can do in other templates require article, and we can load the article component. So diving deeper into the class, you can define custom methods within your class to render whatever you need. In this case, for example, we have a method to render the background that goes at the top. We got another method to render series, which is like related elements with that we list at the bottom of the article. And then also React gives you a few useful methods that are related with its with a component's lifecycle. Like for example, we have implemented here. I have removed the implementation to make this shorter, but we have at least here the definition. Get initial state would give you the default values of each of the properties for an article, and component did mount. It's like an event that you can implement its method, and React will call this method when the component is built and the DOM has been attached to it. So let's suppose that when an article renders, I want to do something with the DOM, I would do it there. That's where I can do search for anything within the component's DOM and make any changes I like. And then finally, every component has a render method. And this is when it gets a bit tricky because, well, it may shock to people because, as you can see, we have first a little bit of JavaScript and then we have XML, and there are no quotes in here. And this is why this is a JSX file and why it has to be compiled, because obviously this will crash in a browser. So when we compile this, all this set of XML tags get compiled into JavaScript. But for us, it's plain XML. I had a few rendering issues with highlight.js while using these code snippets. This, for example, should be uppercase, and there should be a a forward slash here, but for some reason highlight.js is just trying to format this. I don't know why, but anyway, that's why I'm pointing that out. And same thing, this should be a single tag, not an opening tag and then a closing tag. So here we can see that we have a header. So header is another component, and when React is going to compile this, it's going to discover that there is a header component there, and it's going to load it. It's going to load the header component and render it there. So that's going to render our menu at the top, and then we have the rest of the template. If you have used other JavaScript technologies, this may look familiar. We are rendering properties within the template. And actually, article hero is yet another component. The article hero is like the heading with the big image and the title and who has written this article. So we are using that hero in other places. That's why it's another component. And then what we're doing here is rendering the body. It has a bit of HTML, so we are using another component. It's a third-party component called rich text that allows you to render HTML within a React component. And finally, actually, this shouldn't be here. It should be at the top, but I don't want to show the source code, not to get out of this session, of the presentation, but this is highlight.js being just funny. And then finally, we export the article. Any doubts so far? So good? Okay. Hey. Right, I'm going to go briefly through forms. This is an example form. It's the contact form. Actually, I realized that this form was a bit longer to explain, so I took another example, which is the newsletter widget. It's very simple. It has three states. Initial one, this is when you fill out the form behind the title, and the response. This sends a subscription to MailChimp, and we wanted it to work just in the client. But then MailChimp's API is not very good. So what we're doing is that we are sending this form to the front-end server, so to Node.js, and Node.js is sending that to MailChimp. Let's say it's working as a proxy, because you send the form, goes to Node.js, our front-end server, that gets sent to MailChimp, we get the response, and we pass it back to the client. So let's see how it works. Same thing again. Same thing. This is another component. This is the newsletter component. At the top we have dependencies. Then we have the class that defines the component, and finally we export it so it can be reused. In this case, we are loading React and icon. The initial state of this component is what we use to define what are the three different statuses that I showed before for the form. So I'm using three variables here. Whenever sending is true, we'll show a spinner. Like for example, when we send the form, status is the message that we want to show like, hey, okay, we registered you, or hey, you're already registered. And then try again, it's a link that we show next to the message whenever we want that person to, let's suppose that there was a network error, then we'll show an error, and you can click try again, and the inbox, the input field will appear again. So every time we call this method, setState, we are setting these fields, and React is reloading the component. If you have worked with other JavaScript technologies, this would be, for example, AngularJS, this would be like when you are binding whatever is in the controller scope with the template. So that's using this state is how React updates the DOM of a component. This is actually how the try again button works. So when you click on try again, typically we stop the link not to be controlled by the browser, and we hit set state. So when we do hit this set state, the component gets rendered again, and we have some if conditions there that will, for example, hide the input field, show a message, maybe just show the successful message. We'll make the decisions based on these three values. And this is how we send the form. We get the email field from the component. This is the URL in Node.js that is going to process the submission. And we are not using jQuery here, basically because we don't need to. Like, we can use raw XML HTTP requests to handle this. And that's how we send it. We define an error handler, and we inspect the response. Depending on what we get by MailChimp, we want to show one error or another. There may be different cases where we just want to say thank you, you are subscribed, or we want to let them try again, or we don't want them to try again because we can't, because, for example, I don't know, the server is down. So that's what we are evaluating in these responses. And finally, everything ends with a set state where we define how the component should be rebuilt. This is how we send the data, and this is the template. So it's a very simple form. This is the form definition. This is how we tell the form that it's going to be processed by React. It may sound familiar to you when, I don't know, this is how I started doing like JavaScript handlers in the old times. So a few years ago, this was the way to bind something to an event. And then the best practice was, no, JavaScript shouldn't be within the HTML. You should bind to the DOM through the JavaScript. Like, you should do $ from jQuery selector bind, for example, submit, and then implement your submit callback. But the thing is that React, since it's very declarative, lets you do this, and when it processes this template, it's going to change this. It's going to take this away, take note that it has to process, it has to call this callback when the form is submitted, and React has one single listener at the top of the body field. So it's going to inspect what gets clicked or what sort of actions happen, and call the right callbacks. So it's very fast. You just have one listener for the whole application. We had problems with AngularJS because we would write like dozens and dozens of listeners, and obviously that affects performance. So this is very fast and it's clear. You can see that the form is submitted there. You don't have the callback at the top and then the form at the bottom. As I said, everything is pretty clear in React, and that's something I really like of it. The rest is just common HTML. Like, even the input field, I think that the only special attribute that it has is this reference that we use at the callback to obtain the email, and that's it. The rest is plain HTML. Any doubts so far? Right, how it's time, that's good. So next, this is the server side server side in the front end of this form submission. This is Node.js. And in Node.js, we have an Express application. Express is a library to build Node.js applications. And in this Express application, we are defining a few routes that the front-end server is going to handle. And one of them is the form submission. So when we get something to this resource, let me scroll down a little bit further. Right. This is how we process it. So we load a bunch of server settings, like our MailChimp's API key. And we load another Node.js module, which is an API with MailChimp. And well, the submission is pretty straightforward. We just connect to the API and send the email to the whatever list we have in our MailChimp account, and we get the response. And as I said before, this is just a proxy. We pass this back to the client, to the front end. So we just send the data, and then we saw before in the form handler how we evaluate the response, and we decide what we show to the client, sorry, to the user. Right. So anybody have heard about this term in JavaScript libraries, isomorphism? Right. So I once read about what this means in mathematics, and I already forgot. Any mathematics here? Who knows about this? It's something about shapes, but I forgot. In JavaScript, an isomorphic application, it's an application where its code, in this case JavaScript, can be processed in the server or in the client. So the code is shared. It may have happened to you in a project that you run something in Ajax, and then you have to do something pretty similar in PHP. So you have the same logic, like shared twice. With this, it doesn't happen because the code can run both in the server and the client. So we're going to see a little example to outline this. Let's take this article. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go straight into this article. And this front end is a single page application. And single page applications, normally they have a bunch of JavaScript. And if you view the source, you just see a bunch of JavaScript, because the way this works is you open a page, the whole application loads, and then it checks what are you requesting, in this case an article, and it calls whatever service to get it. So there are two requests. The first one you make, and then the second one which runs in the client. It's very good because after that first load, the navigation is pretty quick, but the first page load is very slow. Plus, all devices won't see the site because it's all JavaScript. While in React, as being isomorphic, the first request goes straight to Node.js. As you can see here, we have HTML. There's no JavaScript. So this is how it works. We make the request to this page, and Node.js gets the request and passes back to React. React returns the article, and Node.js returns both the bunch of HTML plus the application. So the first page request is very fast. And then afterwards, the rest of the navigation goes in the client. That's why it's isomorphic. So what I'm going to do here is I'm reloading the page and inspecting the request, and it's like if it was a server-side application, like we are loading just images, one JavaScript file, that's it. So there are no client-side requests on this first page load. And what I'm going to show now is what happens when I browse through the site and I click on the same article. So this interaction is happening in the client side. So when I click it, now I'm making a request to CouchDB. And this request wasn't there before when I went directly to the article, because this time the request was handled by React client side. I clicked on this article in the article listing, and React said, okay, I'm going to take care of this request. It's not going to get to Node.js. React by this time, since we're already browsing the site, has all the templates and all of the routes, and it checks. So we have clicked on a link. It queries CouchDB. Hey, somebody has queried for this particular article. CouchDB returns the article, and React thinks, okay, so this is an article. I know what's the article template, and I got here the object with the data that I have to show. So it passes the data to the article component, and it renders the article. Sounds clear? Yeah?
So the CouchDB is exposed to the browser?
Correct.
The browser can directly contact?
Correct. You can query the CouchDB. It's public, the database.
Is it a problem of security at some point?
No, because what's exposed in CouchDB, it's looping. It's looping again. Don't worry. and I'm done with this video. No, the thing is, we filter what we export from MySQL to CouchDB. So nothing that can compromise the site, it's in CouchDB. Everything that is in CouchDB, it's meant to be public. So somebody could steal all of our data by querying the site, but that's fine. You know, you could do it with a script in a website anyway. So you can query the site, and we query directly CouchDB from the client. Any more questions about this?
For the whole application, lives in the client. And the first time you're going to load all the Node.js application. application in the client, permanent reload step by, page by page, or it lives in the browser?
It lives in the browser. So this is how React does it. Let's suppose we do the same step. We open an article, and then I click on articles. I want to get the list of articles. So when I click on articles, React catches that request. It queries CouchDB to figure out what /articles is. And this time CouchDB returns an object that says this is a list of articles, and you should use the articles template. And so React builds the whole template, and automatically it checks what's different between the current page where you are and the articles listing. It's like it makes a diff, and it automatically changes the DOM for you. So you don't need to say, body, replace this by this other thing. No, React takes care of that. It keeps like what they call a virtual DOM. It's like an array with all the elements, and it compares that array with whatever you want to load, and it makes a difference. It removes elements, and it's pretty good and fast at it. Does it answer your question? Deployments. So yeah. We could. I don't know, to be honest. I mean, we could. I guess. Yeah, I guess that we would do as you just said. Like we would keep that in CouchDB in different languages. Like maybe when we query CouchDB what we want, like for example a particular article, we would either we would append the language in the path. We would need different copies of content, right? Like one in English, one in Spanish, and same for the views. Same for the views, yeah. Say that again? What happens when? Oh, you mean the code that has some text? Yeah. I have no idea. I don't know. Yeah. So you mean how we translate the interface, right? Okay. So the code. I have no idea. I don't know. We would have to think. I guess we would have to do some kind of T function like in Drupal, but in this case it's all in English, so we didn't have that problem. So I don't know. But if, yeah, we wouldn't use T function. We would do something maybe on the client. I don't know. It's a big thing, internationalization. So. Oh yeah. I'll write something in the blog. Yep.
In particular, I have some problems that in the first loop, in the first step, you have all the information, you have all the JavaScript and everything, all the controllers, models, whatever. And implementing the AMD as a model definition is kind of hard, and it's not so simple to do it. I don't know if in React you have the same possibility of loading external components, not loading in the same
asynchronously.
Yeah,
Yeah, so that's a bit tricky. So I could show you the code afterwards if you like. So what we do with React is, first you get a bunch of HTML, and the browser can render that straight away, right? And then we load asynchronously the application script. So while you see in the page there, you are downloading the application for your next click, let's say. So that's why it's fast. So that's how React, well, it's not how React works, I would say, it's how we have adjusted the application bootstrap to work. But there is a Node.js module to help you with that. So I'll show you later if you like, because we will have to dive into the code. Okay? I think I got just a couple more slides. So deployments, we have 3 jobs in Jenkins. One is the one that runs cron every minute, Drupal side. Another one to make releases for the backend, another one to make releases for the front end. We just give a tag to each of these deployment jobs, and it takes care of deploying. Here's a simplified version of what happened on these jobs. This is when we make a new release for the backend. So far, since we are in live, we are actually running the migration when we go live. Once we go live, we will do the typical appdb and features revert, and all that stuff. That happens here. So we're using a makefile, an old times Linux makefile. And this make is the one that right now installs the site, creates everything that we need, and then we have another subtask that runs the migration. So this one, in the makefile, runs drush.mi and imports everything from the old site. What we're doing here is we have in the same server the current site and the new site. We import everything from production's current site into the copy that we have in the server, and because we need this stuff to to run the installation and migration for the new site. So and then we write like a handy version file so we can check in which version we are. And for the front end, we do it in 2 steps. We deploy to an image, like to a separate directory, because we want the application to be up all the time. And then we run make. And make takes care here for updating node modules, updating Bower, running grunts, obfuscating, joining JavaScript files together. And if this step successes, then we go to the next step. And the next step is just, we have a symlink to the root application, and we change that symlink in an atomic way, so there's no downtime in the front end. And again, we write a tag, and then we wrote a small job to restart a Node.js server in case we made any changes in the Node.js routes, for example. We need to restart the application, and that's how we do it. So next steps for this. The backend is Drupal 7. As soon as we go live, I want to pass it to Drupal 8. I haven't been doing Drupal 8 since maybe almost a year, and I want to, so this would be a great excuse. There is no user session right now. All the navigation is anonymous, so we don't have a problem with that. But what if we need to? We need to figure out how to handle sessions safely. And there's no site preview, and this is a problem because you don't know how an article is going to look like until you publish it. We have discussed briefly about this. It's not a problem now because it's our company site, but we thought, like, for example, if whenever we need this, what we could do is that we can have a secondary CouchDB database and add an extra button in the backend that says preview. And when you click preview, that article gets sent to the secondary database. That is protected only as maybe through the VPN you can access it, and you can see the node there. And if you like it, you click save, and the article gets pushed to the actual CouchDB database. This is just theoretical. This is how we have discussed about it, but we haven't implemented it yet. Useful links, documentation that I found about. These are a few isomorphic libraries. There are many more apart from React, but I just know React. And acknowledgement. So these 2 guys are the ones who are like the main heads behind this project. I joined this project when it was like halfway done, and I learned a lot from them. This is Jeff Eaton, and this is Sally Young. So thanks to them. And more questions? Yep. Oh, by the way, sorry, I got a lot of stuff here, like stickers and drinks and books. So I'll just give them through the questions. Like, you will come here for a book afterwards. It just keeps count of the current one where you are, not all of them. So if you're on an article page, it keeps a virtual DOM of that one, not all of the ones you are now. So they don't pile up, let's say, as you browse. Is that your question?
No. But if you move to another article, and then you go back to the original one, that's still virtual DOM.
I don't think so. I think it would mean the navigation would be, again, you're in an article. You click on another article, so it queries CouchDB, gets the article, makes the diff, and makes the changes. So maybe just the body and the title changes. And then when you click on the other article, same happens. CouchDB, which article it is. So I don't think it's caching.
Okay.
I mean, we have varnish for the API, the CouchDB requests, and those are very fast. But it has to go through CouchDB. But they are both in the same server, so it's a very quick request. I'm not fond in how it works, to be honest. I think this is how I think it works, but I may be wrong.
So is there anything that you like more than React?
So what's your question? What I like the most about React?
I've done some work with Angular languages, since all you yesterday.
Yeah.
And I like what I've seen here.
Yeah.
It's really making the
For me, it's like I want to do more projects like this because I loved it. Like especially. Yeah, definitely. I prefer React to Angular now. I have more experience with Angular. I still have to discover more about React to have a more solid reasoning. But so far I love it. And all this isomorphic thing is, it blew up my mind when I saw it. That's why I had that guy, because I was like, bloody hell, I've never seen this before. Any more questions? Oh, come here and get something, by the way. Yep. I've read about it, and it's isomorphic as well. And so there is somebody at Lullaby that is writing an article on how to integrate Meteor with React. Because Meteor, it's a framework, it does much more. While React is just a library, it's just these component things, that's it. If you saw, we have Node.js with Express, and then we have React to do the rendering and part of the routing, so it's smaller. So they can work together. Have you used it, Meteor? No.
It's another one that is also isomorphic, and I'm checking the three of those because they are the kind of like top most important libraries. And but at this point, I'm just checking Angular and seeing if it's working fine for all the requirements that I have. But also for SEO, for example, it's not working so good. So I think that React is much more important and it's much more interesting for this kind of project. So,
I would say for SEO you wouldn't have any issues because first you have HTML there, and then for meta tags in this case we are using schema.org. So we are defining, like if we're showing an article, we're saying this is an article, and schema.org is something that search engines, they understand. So if you say, it's like you use a bit of metadata saying in your HTML saying this is an article and this is the header and this is the body, and search engines understand that. So when you let's say share that, they will know where to fetch the information from. So you don't really need to bother about setting custom meta tags. Maybe you can implement Facebook ones or Twitter ones if you want to be really specific at what to share, but normally by default it will work fine. We've done a bit of testing, but we haven't actually tested yet, like how they get shared, because this is still closed stuff. So we'll see. We may need to make some adjustments. More questions? Come and get something, Nico. Maria. Right. So your question is, if we. Oh right, I didn't speak about comments. So for comments, what we have done here is that we have exported them to Discuss. You know Discuss? It's a third-party commenting library. So we don't have to deal with them. So the main idea with the decoupled approach is that we manage as little as possible. So even the comments, like we used. It's funny because the module to migrate comments, it's a sandbox. It's not a full project. I'm trying to make that a full project, but it works pretty well. You just get the comments, you get a big XML, and then you go to Discuss, import it, and there you are, and you're done. So there is no user interaction with Drupal in this site. And if we had to do it, I think we would just allow access to the backend, like some URLs would be accessible. So for example, let's suppose that comments would be handled by Drupal. We would, when you click on a comment, we would have to make an API in Drupal. So a comment can be sent to Drupal and be stored. But because the thing is that we wouldn't like CouchDB to be to be written, because that would be dangerous. Like there would be like security concerns if we allow users to make changes in the CouchDB database. So I'm not giving you a good answer because I don't know. We had this goal here, like no interaction. Like CouchDB is just read-only, and Drupal is totally isolated. It's actually protected by a VPN. The only connection that is between that exists between the front end and the back end is image styles. Like we are using Drupal's image style system to generate all the thumbnails. So when an image within an article, it's an image style it's called to Drupal, and Drupal renders back. That's the only connection we have, the front end and the back end. The rest, it's all blocked out. I'm sorry, I'm not clear how to work that out. Any more questions? Come and get something, Maria. Yep.
What do you recommend for starting?
Yep. Sorry, can you repeat it? He was telling me something. No, go ahead.
What do you recommend for starting in React? Because I just started learning Angular and a little about that, a little frame.
Right.
Or React.
The documentation is very good. It starts with a tutorial, so I suggest you to go through the tutorial because it takes a very typical hello world example, and then it goes through the main concepts. And if you also go to NPM, which is Node's repository, package manager, and you just search for React, there are a lot of extensions there. And for me, I learned React by reading the docs and also following. Why aren't you working? Following Sally's code, like just reading pull requests, like seeing how she was doing stuff. That's how I learned it. But the docs are very good. They were very helpful. I think we're done. So thank you very much. And come here for things. I still have stickers and books.